Well, thank you so much, James, for joining me today. Really excited to talk about Intrepid Travel, everything it does, its sort of mission and vision. I've followed the company for you know, Call's been around for over a decade. I think, probably
35
8 years
years.
now. Yeah, but for me, when I started Cause I started deep diving into all these different companies and sectors, and Intrepid Travel has been one of the OGs, man. It's I remember it from right when I was starting the platform. So yeah, you guys have set the standard in a lot of different ways. Travel has been a big part of my life. I think it should be a part of everyone's life to a certain extent. I think it invigorates inspiration and motivation. So can't wait to dive deep into it. Talk a little bit about your journey to Intrepid, and now you're the first non-founding CEO. So you've kind of seen this world of impact and sustainable travel go through a lot of different waves. Talk about your journey before Intrepid, and then a little bit of your path to CEO.
Yeah, sure, Grant. Well, it's great to be here with you today. Thanks for having us on. My journey with Intrepid kind of started back to when I was a kid. My dad lived all over the world. He was an
Mm,
automotive engineer. He had jobs in places like Detroit, North Carolina, then gigs into places like Brazil, into Asia. And he'd go away and live all over the world, and he'd come back home and he'd tell us these incredible stories of the amazing adventures that he had. And so I was kind of brought up in quite an international kind of space through his kind of working life, I suppose. And so I had a real curiosity with the world. And when I came out of university, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out and see the world. So I booked a round the world ticket, did a big adventure for 6 months, came back, and I went and got the traditional corporate career. I went and got the gig that would pay the bills. So for me, that was
sure.
private client asset management. That's a posh way of saying I was going to make rich people richer for the next 40 years of my life. And I kind of did it for a few years. And I was thinking, hang on a minute, are you sure this is what life's supposed to be about? Is this the way it's supposed to be? I was wearing a pinstripe suit, going into the office, doing long hours. And for me, I just wasn't deeply passionate about it. And I had two passions in life, Grant. One was soccer or football, as I call it. I'm from the UK, and the other one was traveling. And frankly, I wasn't good enough to play
Mm,
pro soccer, despite my best endeavors. And so I decided to pursue a career in the travel industry and see if I could make a go of it. And I was super lucky. I stumbled across a small Australian adventure travel company called Intrepid. They at the time turned over about 30 million bucks, mostly taking Aussies to Southeast Asia, and they
mm.
were hiring for a sales rep in the UK to start to expand their presence in the British market. And fortunately enough for me, I managed to talk my way into the job. Actually, they offered the job to someone else. That person rejected. I was actually the second choice, which is the irony. And yeah, that was June of 2005, and I haven't really looked back since. And I've been very lucky to be on an amazing journey with them over the course of the last 19 and a half years or so. And yeah, haven't looked back and feel very lucky and humbled to be here.
For those who don't know what Intrepid Travel is, kind of what it does, its overall mission and vision, what's sort of the elevator pitch you give when sort of talking about it?
Absolutely. Intrepid's on a mission to create positive change through the joy of travel. We operate more than 1,000 itineraries to over 100 countries throughout the world, mainly doing what we call small group adventure travel experiences. It's where you travel in a small group of people, an average group size of about 10 people from different parts of the world. Our clients come from Oz, New Zealand, UK, Europe, US, Canada, and they go away on these incredible adventures over the course of 7, 10, 15-day itineraries, set itineraries, and they really immerse you in the destination. They get under the skin of it. You travel from one place to another using local transport, predominantly staying in local accommodation, eating local food, meeting the local people, absolutely seeing the iconic sites in the destination. But to be honest, they aren't really the highlights of an Intrepid trip. The
Mm,
highlights of an Intrepid trip are the local leader taking you to a place that you wouldn't be able to access by yourself, that is typically not easily accessed through ChatGPT or on the internet, and to have a local immersive experience. And to do all that under a platform of trying to do good. Intrepid's a certified B Corp, been a certified B Corp since 2018. We feel very strongly about our kind of purpose and impact mission. I'm really on a mission to try and prove that business can be both profitable and commercially successful, but also do pretty amazing things in the purpose and impact space, that actually one shouldn't come at the expense of another. So that's Intrepid. That's what we're about. Last year, we carried about 328,000 customers on these adventures all over the world. And for a 35-year-old company, we're growing at compound average growth rate 20%, which isn't too bad.
Amazing. When we talk about like, impact and sustainable travel, when we talk about those terms, what is that? I said, how do you sort of define that within Intrepid and maybe, the overall ecosystem? How do you think Intrepid separates itself from other sort of travel services? I mean, you mentioned you've been around for so long that there's just so much experience there. But when we talk about, impact travel, sustainable travel, how do you define that? What does that sort of mean? What sort of goes into that, you think?
I think sustainable travel is all about trying to benefit the people and the communities that you are interacting with, and making sure that travel isn't a one-way experience where it's just customers going out having a great time, but that it also thinks about the wider ecosystem. So at Intrepid, we try and balance ourselves against the kind of key stakeholder groups. And so obviously we want to make sure that our customers have an amazing experience when they travel with Intrepid. But we also want to make sure that the communities within which our customers interact with also get a positive outcome and experience from having those customers in their countries and in their destinations. And while we're there, we want to make sure that the environmental impact of our customers' activities in the destinations is as light as it possibly can be. So I think they're the three kind of stakeholder groups that we're trying to balance up. And I think traditional travel, if you like, was just with that
Mm-hmm.
kind of almost Western lens of let's go in, give our customers a great time, hope they have a good time. And
Yep.
if they do, hopefully they'll come back and travel with us again. But I think sustainable travel is that addition in ensuring that both the local community but also the environment is factored into the travel experience. And I kind of use the notion, Grant, of my time at Intrepid. So I've been around 19 and a half years. The founders obviously have been around 35 years. And when I joined the company, we went out and talked about what we then called responsible travel.
Yeah.
And we said, Intrepid is a responsible travel company, and people would look at you like you had two heads. What on earth are you talking about? What is this? Like in 1999, our founders recruited a responsible travel manager. In 2007, our co-founder Darryl Wade was reading the Weathermakers book by Tim Flannery and realized that actually Intrepid was contributing towards the climate crisis. Well, we didn't really talk about the climate crisis 17 years ago, very obviously important to be talking about today, but as a result led us on a journey to become a carbon neutral business in 2010. So I think at Intrepid, we've always been trying and push the agenda, believe that sustainable travel is the way forward. I often use the notion that at the moment, the industry has kind of got about a third of the people in the industry really believe in it, a third of the people believe in it but don't know how to do it, and a third of the companies are trying to bury their head in the sand and taking absolutely no action at all. And obviously what we have to do is to make sustainable travel the mainstream of all of forms of travel, because if we do that, then travel will be a sustainable business going forward. And for 1 in 10 jobs in the world rely on travel, so we need it to be a sustainable form going forward.
I know it might be tough because you have so many, trips and itineraries, but can you maybe go through, one or two that's pretty awesome? Maybe that's like, not necessarily like a top seller, but maybe ones that, have really impacted, the travel goers and does a really great job of impacting the community as well.
I think obviously we run 1,000 trips, Grant, so it's super hard to
crazy.
kind of pull out individual ones. The two destinations that spring to mind for us, our top two destinations globally at Intrepid are, number one is Vietnam and number two is Morocco. And they're
Really?
two biggest destinations where we take customers to. By chance, I was in Vietnam last week, so I can kind of talk specifically to that.
Yeah, I hear great things.
Vietnam's an incredible destination. So Vietnam's a really great country to travel in because it's relatively thin and narrow, and it's quite easy to kind of go north to south or south to north. So our trips either start in Ho Chi Minh in the south of the country or Hanoi in the north of the country. And then from Ho Chi Minh in the south, you might have an experience going in and seeing the Cu Chi tunnels, the history of what went on during the conflict there 40, 50 years ago now. Learning about the history, doing a cyclo tour around the city. So you jump on these kind of little cyclos. Vietnam has more motorbikes than it has people. So it's a destination that's
Mm.
heavily kind of reliant on motorbikes. So doing these cyclo tours is like a really unique way to try a different type of local transport, but to see a destination and interact with it would almost certainly take you to a series of local restaurants while you're there. So you get to try the amazing local produce. You know, it might be that we go to a market and you get to try a pho, which is a Vietnamese soup, or you go and have a banh mi, which
Mm.
is a traditional kind of Vietnamese kind of roll with some meat in it. From there, we'd head north up to usually to Hoi An. Hoi An is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Hoi
Nice.
An is really kind of stunning, like really small, really iconic destination. You can get some clothes made. You can chill out in a kind of nicer hotel and take a bit of time off yourself. The key thing of an Intrepid trip is we want to have organised activities, but we also want to have free time. From there, you head just slightly north to Hue. Hue is the imperial capital of Vietnam. You got the reunification palaces. You kind of get really into more kind of museum experiences in Hue and see some of the way that Vietnam was kind of hundreds of years ago.
Mm.
And then often we take a very long train ride then overnight up to Hanoi. And just being on those overnight trains in Vietnam, the Reunification Express is a really great way. I love train travel in a destination
Yeah.
to watch the world go by. And then you head up into Hanoi. Hanoi has much more influence from China, given its proximity to China. From there, when you're in Hanoi, walk around the beautiful West Lake, again, visit some of the markets. You often then would go up into Halong Bay being this beautiful kind of bay area where you jump on a boat and have a great kind of water experience. So that's typically a 10-day kind of
Nice.
Intrepid trip. Along the way, you might meet a local family, do a cooking school, do a homestay, stay in different types of accommodation.
Amazing, man. It's in most on most trips usually a 7 to 10 day period. Would you say?
Yeah, varies, Grant. I mean, look, we have 7-day itineraries, we have 15-day itineraries, and that's a reflection of where our customers come from. Often, you know, Americans
Mm-hmm.
have limited vacation time, so obviously, often, you know, it suits the kind of 7 or 10-day itineraries which suit to our American consumers. Aussie customers, British customers often get slightly longer vacation times, and so we have slightly longer itineraries. So, and then often we have different styles of itineraries too, kind of basic level entry, kind of 2.5 to 3 star accommodation, right through to kind of more premium level type trips, which are 4.5 star. And then we have a variety of different specialist experiences you can do. So we have trips that be more skewed towards cycling, or trips that might be more skewed towards food. So you can kind of combine your hobby and your interest with your traveling experience. That's something that we've seen is particularly popular with our guests as we've grown over recent years.
You mentioned, the dozens of offices around the world, you know, doing trips in over 100 countries. I guess as the CEO now, like, how do you maintain, the company culture with such a diverse, workforce around the world? You have so many different, cultures individually, but then also you have, you're striving as a company, to try to grow, maintain that culture so everybody gets the job done. I guess, what has it been like to be, a CEO of a global workforce?
Yeah, look, I feel incredibly lucky to get to lead Intrepid. We've grown hugely over the course of the 19 years that I've been with the company. We employ more than 3,000 office-based staff, tour leaders, and crew across 35 offices around
Wow.
the world. So yeah, a lot of my job and a lot of my team's job is on communication. We spend an awful lot of time focusing on our strategy, clearly articulating that strategy to our team, visiting our offices and make sure they understand it, where we're going, why we're going, how we're trying to get there. And then, one of my other jobs is to recruit as much as possible really great leaders in the organization and empower those leaders. And it's those leaders that go on and execute the strategy with their teams in different countries in the world. And, one of the beauty of Intrepid is that we have huge diversity
Yeah.
of people. Our biggest office in the world is Colombo in Sri Lanka. Second, Melbourne, Australia. Third is Marrakesh in Morocco. It's just our top three, where in all of those offices we have more than 100 people. So every one of those offices is run by a local leader, a local general manager. So that, we're looking for strong cultural fit, strong values alignment. Of course, we want them to be smart. We have a mantra in Intrepid of what we call hungry, humble, and smart. So we want our people to be
Mm.
hungry. We want them to want to learn, to develop, to improve, and continue to make Intrepid and themselves better. We want them to be humble because we believe at Intrepid that it is not one person who is solely responsible for our success, but is very, very much a team effort. And it's not just our, kind of our salespeople or operations people delivering on the ground, our tour leaders, whoever it might be. Everyone plays a role in the success of Intrepid. The best ideas at Intrepid come from our people, not necessarily from myself as the CEO, from co-founders. And then we want people who are smart. And I don't mean smart in the sense that they have MBAs, but
Yep.
smart in terms of a willingness to continue to improve, a willingness to
Yep.
want to learn, to make ourselves better, to read, to be inquisitive. We talk a lot about having two ears and one mouth because it's more important to listen than to talk. So yeah, they're the characteristics we look for in our people. Most of the time we get it right. Of course, we don't always, but as a result, it's been a key part of the success of Intrepid, because really Intrepid is a people organization. When it really boils down, we don't manufacture widgets. We don't have factories
Yep.
with a certain IP around a product. Our product IP is our people, and it's
Yep.
it's those great people that deliver those experiences to our customers. And so we're very, very mindful of that.
I want to talk about, you mentioned growth, a couple of times, and again, just putting on sort of the CEO hat, and a lot of what I try to do is blend, entrepreneurship, impact, sort of businesses that can really, impact the world and the community. And, you sort of mentioned growth, and we'll talk about successes and challenges here a little bit. But what has worked for you guys as far as growth? Obviously, you don't have to share any internal secrets or anything like that. But, has it been word of mouth that really, catalyzes things? Has it been, social media? Has it been paid marketing, events? Like, I guess just talk about what has worked from a growth standpoint the last, 5-10 years or so. I know that changes based on platforms that come out and things like that. But overall, maybe what have been some of the pillars for growth that you can attest to?
Yeah, look, growth's really important to Intrepid Grant. We really believe in it. It's hugely important for us that the business continues to grow and evolve. The key things for us, I think, firstly was geographic expansion, and geographic expansion in really two ways. I mean, the first one was the places that Intrepid would run trips. Intrepid started in 1989 running a trip in Thailand. That then went into Borneo and Vietnam, and kind of grew from Southeast Asia. Once we were operating trips for a few years in Southeast Asia, expanded into other parts of Asia. From there, we headed into Europe, and et cetera, to the point today where we're running 1,000 trips to 100 countries. So there's the geographic expansion of our itineraries and where we go, which obviously helped. There was the expansion of our product ranges. So we went from not just operating and offering one style of trip, but offering styles of trips that could cater for a broader range of customers and customers' budgets or interests. So like I talked about earlier, people that might be like a certain niche of travel, or people that prefer a certain more premium or entry level. So that's obviously an important way in which we've grown through product expansion. Then, of course, the growth has come through geographic distribution expansion. So by that, I mean entering new source markets. When Intrepid started, we only took Aussies. Then we moved into New Zealand. Then in the course of time, about the time I started in the business, we started to, more strongly look at the British market, into North America, and of course the US market. So that has played a really important part in our growth. Another key thing that has played a role is the way in which our customers find us. So again, when Intrepid started in the late 80s, all our distribution came through travel agents. So travel agents were the way in which you would find an Intrepid product. We would sell through a third party, if you like. And obviously, with the advent of the internet, it enabled Intrepid to start to build a relationship directly with the consumer. And that was a really important, kind of hallmark for us in terms of our growth. So, of course, then roles like paid marketing, or the work we've done on our social work, or our SEO has been, increasingly transformative, and to the point where today, pre-pandemic, 48% of our business was direct consumer. Today, here, 2024, more than 65% of our business is directly with the consumer, and that's growing at a faster rate than our traditional B2B business. And so then, of course, we're taking more transformative steps in terms of investing more and more in our brand marketing and our out of home. We've got our biggest brand campaign that Intrepid has ever done in the lead up to cyber activations that will take place around November time.
Mm.
Building the funnel as we start to convert more Intrepid customers into traveling with us next year. So there's kind of been these kind of specific hallmarks. It might be geographic expansion or distribution or growth in product styles. Then it's kind of key hallmarks around our development of becoming more of a direct consumer brand.
How much is the business for like repeat customers? I mean,
Yeah, so about
it's tough because
25%. About
that's a
25% of our
lot.
customers are repeat.
Yeah.
But then the interesting thing for us, Grant, is that even the most loyal Intrepid customer only travels with us once every 700 days. So
Right.
actually, if you
Yeah.
think about the kind of purchase cycle of Intrepid, how often are you going and having these kind of like life-changing adventures or experiences into a
Exactly. Yeah.
Vietnam or a
Hmm.
Morocco or the like? And so our challenge is that, I want to have a relationship with Grant. I want Grant to know Intrepid. I want him to come
Yep.
into our ecosystem. So we've got to have decent brand advertising. We've got to have decent social. We've got to have decent optimization in terms of Google, be it paid or organically. Then when Grant finds us, we need you to kind of interact and enjoy the experience on our site, hopefully find a trip and a date and a price point that suits. And then when you actually convert the booking with us, it's about then getting you built up and excited for that great trip and adventure. And you come back really buzzing and warm and excited. But actually, when are you next thinking about heading off on that kind of
Right.
next life-changing adventure? So as part of our strategy towards 2030, we're increasingly thinking about how can we have a relationship with a customer on a much more frequent basis than just this kind of once every 2-3 year, kind of huge, almost
Yeah.
life-changing trip.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about things like the role of accommodation, the role of gear, the role of media, the role of more day trips, so that we can actually have a more
Yep.
frequent interaction with the customer. For example, we've just gone live with something called the Intrepid List. The Intrepid List is a new coffee table book. It's all about 100 bucket list experiences, but alternative bucket list experiences. And so what that does is you can go and buy an Intrepid book on Amazon, buy that book, it goes onto people's coffee tables at home, and suddenly the customer sees Intrepid and thinks about it beyond just the traditional trip operation. So it's some of the small ways in which we're wanting to start to build a deeper connection with the customer on a more frequent basis.
Yeah. Weekend trips, stuff like that. Ads that you take those more often than these big, massive trips that like 7 to 10 days. That's again for the American market. We don't get the month vacations that
That's right. Another
Europeans
example
get,
is,
and
yeah, that's right. Another example is domestic travel. Typically Intrepid has been built on taking
yeah.
Americans overseas.
Yep.
Well, 3 years ago, we purchased a company called Wildland Trekking, which is now 100% owned by Intrepid. It continues to operate
Nice.
on the Wildland Trekking brand, and that's backcountry walking trips to some of the
Yeah.
most beautiful national
Heck yeah.
parks throughout the
Yes.
US. Going out and doing these iconic kind of treks through the Grand Canyon or Yosemite or Yellowstone or wherever it might be, 3-4 day, like
Yep.
really immersive in nature, low impact. So again, there's some of the ways we're thinking about actually domestic tourism. If 82% of all travel spend in the US is spent domestically and we're only taking people out of the country, we've got to have a domestic play, hence the acquisition of Wildland Trekking.
Yep. We just did a little 4-day trip to Grand Tetons area in Wyoming,
Beautiful.
and it was, again, short and sweet. You take maybe 2 days off and you got 2 days for the weekend, so you don't have to take as much time off. So I do think domestic travel is still a big opportunity because, America's so huge and
It's
we
huge.
really don't.
Sure is.
We
Coming from
really
a little
don't.
island like Britain, where I'm originally from, it's a kind of world unto itself. So there's so many
Totally,
opportunities
yeah.
to explore the
There's so
beautiful
much there.
country you have.
I want to talk a little bit about, the challenges, and I know travel can be cyclical. You have, obviously, put the pandemic aside, that's a totally different animal and beast. But maybe in a normal sort of month to month, year to year, 3-year span, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face?
Look, geopolitical conflicts, natural disasters, they play big
Yeah.
challenges in a company like Intrepid. If you have instances of not pandemic related, but you had Ebola in Western Africa, for
Sure.
example, come
Yeah.
up pre-pandemic, and suddenly Madrid might be closer to West Africa than Johannesburg, but suddenly everyone's giving the whole of the African continent a complete miss. And that can be really challenging. It's one of the reasons why Intrepid is global, why we operate on 7 continents and we have operations in 100 countries. And that's, if you go back to our inception, we started in Asia. Well, in 2003, when bird flu struck,
Yeah.
Intrepid's entire operations were going to a destination that people weren't traveling to, and that promoted our co-founder
Mm,
at the time to start up our European operation. And so, yes, one of the reasons why we have a global offering, because it helps protect our business during times of either geopolitical conflict. And, if you go back to just last year, more pertinently, top two of our top five destinations were Egypt and Jordan. Well, unfortunately, post the events of 7 October,
mm-hmm,
Egypt and
mm-hmm.
Jordan quickly disappeared from our top 5, top 10, top 15 list of places visited. But what happens is that people tend to keep traveling. They just tend to go to other parts of the world. So
Sure.
conversely, Asia is experiencing an enormous year in 2024, because it's really the first full year since the pandemic that it's been open and
Yeah.
accessible for customers to get back to. And then you get kind of boom destinations like Japan. It feels like everyone wants to get to Japan right now and try the food and experience cherry
Mm,
blossom. And, it's seen as a kind of friendly, safe, secure destination to get to. So I think managing geopolitical conflicts and natural disasters is very challenging. This time last year was the Morocco earthquake. Morocco's our number one destination in 2023. So that's tough. One of the emerging things we're seeing is the impacts of climate change. Climate change is impacting Intrepid's business on a daily basis. If I went back to our operations report 5, 6, 7 years ago, instances of climate change having impacts on Intrepid trips was far less. And it is just irrefutable evidence today that the planet is warming, and as a result of a warming planet, it is having really devastating impacts upon our trips. We're seeing, just typhoons, hurricanes,
yeah.
landslides, um, uh, fires. It's going to be the hottest year on record yet again. Just seeing the impacts of coming off, particularly a European summer, and some of the heat issues they've been experiencing there. And what we're then seeing is that customers actually don't want to travel to Europe in peak summer season. So July and August for 25 is actually looking softer into Europe for us. But conversely, we're seeing a lot of demand in Scandinavia is cooler. We're seeing a lot of demand into shoulder seasons into
Yeah.
Europe. So yeah, there's some of the challenges that you have to navigate as a global tour operator and work around.
I'll end on a couple questions here. The first would be just around sort of a career in travel, and maybe what advice you would give to, college graduates, or maybe just, maybe people young in their career that want to shift maybe, to travel because they have that sort of bug where they want to, travel, but also make it a career. I guess how I know the path was so different for you, and there's all kind of ways to get to the end of the road, but I guess maybe what are some of advice and tips you would give people wanting to get into the travel industry, sort of make it their life to travel and see the world, but also get paid to do it,
Yeah, absolutely, Grant. It sounds incredibly romantic and attractive and fantastic, and I'm very fortunate it has been for me, but obviously it's not always the case. Look, I think firstly, travel is a passion play for so many people, and so many people get into it because they love it and believe in it.
Yeah.
Typically, it's often can not be the best remunerating, but there are some great jobs and some great opportunities that people can move into. Certainly when I joined Intrepid in 2005, I never imagined 19 and a half years later I'd be here. I never imagined I'd been CEO for the last 7.5 years. I honestly thought I'd do 2 years and then see a bit of the world and then go back to kind of a traditional corporate career. But what you realize is that traditional corporate careers can exist within the travel industry. You can
Yes.
combine your passion
Yep.
with whether a company like Intrepid, we have a legal team, so you can be a general counsel. You can
Yep.
we have a massive finance team, accountants, people that are experts in tax, people that are specialists in all different types of financial streams. We have a big people team. We have of course, we have traditional sales, we have traditional tour operations. But when you're thinking about a career in travel, don't be limited to, I need to be a tour leader, I need to go and work in
Yep.
a kind of venue, I need to work on the phone selling. There really is great diversity of opportunity. And I think the next thing is just make sure you do research really well around kind of type of company you want to go and work for, because travel is 1 in 10 jobs in the world do have impacts with the travel industry. There are some really amazing companies out there, and there's some companies that maybe aren't as fantastic. So, make sure you do your research. Looking for certified B Corps is often a really good place to start, because certified B Corps are companies that are trying to balance all stakeholders. Yes, they're trying to look after their customers, but they're considering the environment, the communities, their partners, and also their people themselves. So that can be a really excellent place for people to look. And then the other real big advantage of the travel industry, Grant, is more often than not, you're going to get the opportunity to be exposed to different cultures, people of different backgrounds, of different races, religions, ethnicities. And for me, that's the most amazing thing about travel. Intrepid is a company of 100 different nationalities and so many different people of so many different backgrounds. And I've got to spend time in people's homes and meet different families and have different connections with people. That's the most rewarding thing, because I now have a network and a group of connections all over the world. So not only can you give customers amazing times and amazing experiences, you can also yourself build up this network of people that become friends in kind of many countries around the world. And it's been one of the best things about the experience for me of working in the travel industry.
What I hear is just, if you have a skill set, you can find a place in any industry and sector you really want, and so it's just having that capability and learning the skill. It's like, hey, can I be on the marketing team? Can I be on the legal team? Can I be on operations? Can I be on, like you said, I mean, it's kind of like sports where like not everybody's going to be playing on the field, but 60-70% of the jobs in the sport industry is not playing. It's outside of the field. And it's sort of the same about travel. There's so many different ways to be part of the sector, as long as you have a skill set, So I always say just develop a skill, and then you can kind of go where you want to go.
It is exactly that, Grant. If you go and just look at the intrepidtravel.com careers page, you will see, I don't know how many roles we'll have advertised, 20, 30 odd, maybe more roles. And the diversity of the different types of jobs that we're looking for at the moment and the different geographic locations will really enforce that point to you.
Yeah, awesome. Last question I'll have is just about a little bit about the future. I know you've hit sort of a sweet spot now, after the pandemic. Everything's kind of opened up, and you're kind of hitting a good, consistent. You're seeing how the world moves a little bit more normalized. Over the next 3 to 5 years, what is sort of the goals and successes you would like to achieve as a company and as a brand?
Yeah, we think we're in a sweet spot because we believe increasingly that people are looking for experiences, and Intrepid has a factory of experiences and 35 years of delivering and developing experiences. And for people, increasingly, it's not necessarily about having the biggest house or the nicest car or the flashiest clothes, but it is about having the best experiences. We are living in the experiences economy. So we're well placed there. And the second thing we're well placed for is that we have a very long and successful history of sustainability and impact credentials, and people increasingly want to buy from or work for companies that have independent credentials that back those up, and Intrepid has those. So we're very well positioned, but we don't take that for granted. And so we've just set a very ambitious 2030 strategy, and it's really based around a few problems, Grant. And the problems are, the world is seemingly more connected than ever, yet we've never been more divided or as individuals more socially isolated. And instead of bringing us together, our devices and social media are pushing us apart. And meanwhile, we know that the future of the planet hangs in the balance. But in Intrepid, we know, we believe that there is more that brings us together as people than divides us. And we also know the capacity and power that travel has to create positive change. And it's why Intrepid's 2030 strategic aspiration is based on connecting more people and more communities in more ways than ever before, because we believe the world needs more Intrepid people. So that's what we're setting out to do. We've got an ambitious plan of leveraging our core, some game-changing strategies, acceleration into certain markets and certain product styles. And then equally, we want to kind of develop in that kind of more than tool sector so that we can have that more frequent relationship with the customer. And you start to see Intrepid go beyond just trip operations, but you start to see us in the media, you start to see us with gear, you start to see us with accommodation. We've already taken that first foray with a couple of accommodation plays. So that's going to keep us pretty busy for the course of the next 5 or 6 years. And, as a result, if we do that pretty well, then, we'll have an NPS north of 80, we'll have an NPS north of 70. We'll probably double our revenue and get some pretty strong impact and profit outcomes as a result of those two things.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much, James, for taking the time. It's been awesome to see the growth of Intrepid, just the consistent ways that it's been improved and the impact on the ground of, follow the blog and the stories and the images for a while, and had some friends that took some trips and stuff like that. So it's got a good reputation just from people in my network, and it's been a thrill to chat with you and kind of talk about your journey and the mission and vision from an internal person. So congrats on everything and best of luck for the next decade to come.
It's been a pleasure, Grant. Thanks so much for your time.